Hello dear students, my name is Gaurav Bansal, your teacher for Indian economy at GS Core. We already had quite a few videos in this series. This is our video number 5 where we'll be discussing the next theme which I've picked up from agriculture. The topic is post-production issues in agriculture. So, agriculture is one of the most important area in your mains examination. Almost 3 to 4 questions every year are coming from agriculture. So in terms of weightage, it is in fact more than your art and culture, world history and PIC combined. It is bigger than those sections. Okay. So agriculture in itself is one of the big area, and when you study agriculture, then certain aspects of agriculture are related to production. For example, crop diversification, crop choice, okay, the green revolution, etc. In this you also study fertilizers, you study irrigation, all of those are production related issues. But even more important than production issues in economics, it is post-production issues that matter. So in the post-production issues, we have, for example, first of all, the storage. When you cut the crop, okay, when you have already produced the crop, what you are going to do next? You are going to cut the crop, harvest the crop. Once you harvest, you have to store it or package it. Storage or packaging. Let's say packing. Then apart from storage and packing, what else is done? Once farmer will store or pack into certain bags, or maybe they will not store or pack it, they will directly take it to agriculture markets, okay, in which we study APMC, Agriculture Produce and Market Committees. Basically, in colloquial language, we can call it the mandi system. Okay, you must have heard of sabji mandi, anaj mandi, phal mandi. Mandi is a very colloquial word where auctions takes place. It is a type of market where prices are not fixed, prices are decided by auction. So people compete with each other for the prices. Anyways, so mandis officially are called APMC in agriculture, or it is APMC structure which governs the agriculture sale. So market system, basically APMC or mandi is what? The agriculture market. So storage, packaging, marketing, and then you also need to carry the crop to the mandi or the market. Then from mandi or market it will be carried to the consumer. So transportation. So all of these are fundamental topics in your post-production issues. So in fact, if you look at the syllabus of economy from agriculture, more than half of your syllabus is in terms of the post-production. In the post-production, you have, for example, APMC as we are discussing, then Food Corporation of India, the FCI, okay. Then we also have the topic of MSP, because agriculture pricing is also part of the post-production issue, agriculture pricing. It is a subtopic within agriculture market, so I didn't explicitly mention it, but nonetheless, it's a fundamental topic. So you have agriculture storage, packaging, the marketing, or basically the sale, then the price, and then transportation. And even apart from that, there is also food processing and many more aspects. So these are all the areas that we cover in post-production issues. Now, let us look at one past year question. So, in 2020, we saw this question, which is relatively a general and quite a straightforward question on the post-production issues. So, the question is, what are the main constraints in the transportation and marketing of agriculture produce in India? So, question is quite straightforward. I do not even think I have to explain it. But what we are trying to do in this series, as you might be aware if you are following it for some time, that from the question we are trying to interpret the theme, and we are not looking to answer the question, but more than that, we are trying to predict how in future UPSC might ask certain questions. So the purpose of studying a question is basically to interpret what are the underlying areas that you need to cover. ये question किस area को cover करता है, और from which areas this question has been asked. So as we have discussed the theme, it is from the post-production in agriculture. Okay. So if we go in little more details, then basically agriculture marketing, agriculture sale, or the food storage issues or transportation issues. Again, transport and marketing of agriculture produce. So from where this question is there? So your entire mandi system will come into it, FCI will come into it if we go into it from institutional perspective. Okay. Then food storage is responsibility of FCI, Food Corporation of India. Agriculture sale is responsibility of APMC, Agriculture Produce and Market Committees. Now, in this context, you also have to look at the ENAM, which is the latest reform in the APMC system. So, likewise, you need to understand, while I have mentioned certain concepts, there are many more areas which you can directly see in your syllabus. In your syllabus, you can see FCI. In your syllabus, you can see APMC. Okay. So, how do you basically interpret from the question which institutions, which bodies, which topics are we really talking about? Okay. Then when we talk about agriculture marketing, even the contract farming is a topic there, although it is not relevant in this question. So from that question, all of these underlying themes we can look into. So these are the topics from which there can be similar questions. So this question, since it was very straightforward, it was not very difficult to interpret the theme. Okay, it was quite visible. It was very clearly given: storage, transportation. Okay, so let us look at again transportation and marketing. Sorry, I said storage. So question is quite straightforward in that sense. So transportation is largely related to the Food Corporation of India and marketing is largely about APMC. Now let us look at the answer of this question. So in this question, when you are trying to answer, first of all, try to interpret the theme correctly, and in the introduction itself you should link the question to that theme, so that it is quite clear to examination. You are talking about that broader area, you are not being very specific. कि आपको समझ आ गया है कि किस broader area की बात हो रही है, कि bigger picture क्या है, what is the bigger picture, you are quite clear with that. Examiner should be able to see that. That is the purpose of introduction. Okay. Sometimes the topic of discussion can be very narrow, but we still have to reflect. While this specific topic we are discussing might be narrow, but I am understanding in which context we are talking about, in which bigger picture things are there. So that we need to establish first. This is the art of writing introduction, by the way. Okay. So sometimes what students do, they pick up a keyword from the question, that they will start talking about transportation, they will start talking about marketing directly as a keyword, that in agriculture transportation this is the role of agriculture transportation or marketing. Well, fair enough, you can do that, but this is much better. If there is an underlying theme which is not mentioned, you should try to link it. First of all, try to give examiner the bigger picture. So post-production in issues in India, where transport and marketing both will come in. So post-production issues, they reduce the farm profitability. Okay, farmer had a good output, farmer worked very hard regarding production, the soil is very fertile, seeds are good and fertilizers were good, everything was provided. So production हमने अच्छा कर लिया, we provided everything, but after production, once we had bumper crop and we are very happy, we are not able to sell it later at a proper price. Hence production is fine, but post-production is creating losses for farmers. So if there are issues like that, it affects the profits of farmer. And these are some of the most important issues in India. Okay, so this is something you need to establish in the introduction. You need to fit these direct topics also within that broader theme. Okay, and then you talk about specifically transportation, that what are the constraints in transportation, and eventually what are the constraints in marketing. Okay, that there is limited access, markets are completely dominated by government, and farmers were not allowed to sell outside the APMC, and many of the states do not recognize the contracts. Okay, so many topics like that. Then MSP or farmer do not get good price. Then transportation constraints, poor infrastructure. Then transportation also involves the cold transportation, refrigerated transportation is simply not available in many parts of India. Okay, so farmers are not able to, let's say, supply many of the perishable commodities like eggs, like milk at a far away distance. Okay, so let's say your village or your small town is some 700 kilometers from a major city. In that major city, there is good demand for milk and eggs, but refrigerated transportation facility is simply not available in your area. Forget about 700, let's say it's 300 kilometers. But because of absence of refrigerated transport, you are not able to send them to that city. So your products have to sell in the local town where prices are less. You are not able to take advantage of the better prices in cities. So there are many issues like that. This is just one example I gave you. So you talk about transportation, you talk about marketing in two separate segments, and then eventually you need to talk about an assessment that overall damages are quite significant due to this. Okay, maybe you can provide some data there in the, this is not an answer, this is just an indicator. Okay, hardly 60 words I have written here, and this is just to give you indication what is there to be covered. Okay, so this is merely approach to the answer. So I do not have all the details here, but I'm telling you in conclusion, when you will be writing, you should be talking about that what kind of losses they create for farmers in India. Okay, so for example, if certain post-production issues can be managed, okay, for example related to transportation, storage and agriculture pricing, farmers revenue may increase by 10% and their profitability may increase by almost 25%. So that's what we need to understand. So on average, let's say we are saying a farmer has 30% profitability. If they are producing at a cost of 70 rupees, they are selling at 100, let's say on average. The revenue, if it increases by 100, 10%, okay, it becomes 110. Your profits, which were 30, now become 40. So your profits increasing by 25% roughly when your revenue is increasing by 10%. I'm just trying to give you an idea here. So that's how it happens. And this is actually close to, आपको लग रहा है अगर ये random number है, these are not random numbers. In India, this is what the average profitability is. Government want farmers to be able to earn double of what it is cost. So farmers should be able to earn double the cost, or at least 50% more than the cost. Okay, so but farmers are not always able to earn that. In fact, this data is also highly skewed because of horticulture. In horticulture, profitability is quite high, but in other areas, food grain, except wheat or rice, or particularly basmati rice, and a other handful crops, majority of areas the profitability is quite low at 15-20%. Even this 30% is largely due to the good MSP that is provided for wheat. Even that would not be there in absence of MSP for wheat, and also because of horticulture. So nonetheless, I hope you got the idea of this and you got the understanding of this overall area. So here agriculture pricing will also come into picture. You do not have to talk about pricing here. I'm just talking about that if we can address transportation and marketing itself, this alone will improve the revenue by 10% and profitability by 25%. Okay, so from where I'm talking about it from the Dalwai committee. So there is Dalwai committee on doubling farmers' income, in which it talks about that we need to address post-production issues which will improve profitability by almost 30% and 25 to 30% it says, and the production technology itself, if we can improve that, that will account for another 30 to 40%, and then there are other areas to improve which will account for the remaining. So from where you double the farmer's income or profitability, that is something he is talking about there. So if you get into the depth of the report, then there are many things there. Nonetheless, let's look at some related questions here. Okay, so UPSC may ask you a similar question where they might ask you, examine the role of post-harvest infrastructure in ensuring food security and farmers' income in India. Okay, so is it just about farmers' income? No, it is also about food security. So that dimension we did not cover in that question because already there was a lot to write, but this is also an important aspect. UPSC may pinpoint on it because of lack of proper storage, proper transportation and poor marketing. We lose a lot of our food grain. Okay, बहुत सारा अनाज हमारा खराब हो जाता है, and particularly in horticulture sector we lose a lot of crop. So those losses are to the tune of 15%. 15% अनाज या आलू, सेब, केला ये मंडी तक आते आते और बिकते बिकते खराब हो जाता है. So a lot of losses are there. This not only affects farmers' income but also affects food security. It also affects the food availability. So both dimensions are actually important. So while that question was particularly looking into the farmer's perspective, but from consumer perspective also you can talk about it. Then you can also talk about it, the food inflation. Because of food wastage, the food prices also increase because farmer has to cover up the losses from the remaining crop. Okay, it is, I think, quite logical, very easy, you can understand. A person purchases 100 packet of bread at 20 rupees each and he wants to sell them. Let's say this costs the person 2000 rupees, but out of these 100 packets of bread, let's say only 90 packet of bread he is able to sell, remaining 10 they go bad over time. So originally this farmer wanted to get a profit of 500 rupees here. His idea was to sell these bread packet at 25 rupees and to make a profit of 500. But now, because 10 packets have gone bad, he will not be able to sell at 25 rupees, because at 25 rupees if that person is going to sell, that person is going to earn only 2250. So in order to maintain the profitability target, now farmer has to sell the product at almost 28 rupees. Okay, then only they will get the 2500 rupees revenue. So if farmers want to maintain their profitability, they have to cover up for the wastage in the remaining output. That is why the price rise or food inflation is also very relevant concern. So the post-production issues in India, you can link it to three things: farmers' income, food security and food inflation, apart from many other issues such as farmers' welfare and so many aspects. Next question: how do warehousing and storage limitations affect agriculture price realization in India? So in this question, I have specifically touched upon the food inflation or the price part. So even in the previous question you could talk about it, but this is here where you are directly asked about price. So usi question ko they can ask in the sense of farmer. Let's look at the original question. Okay, main constraints on transportation and marketing of agriculture produce in India. Okay, so they are asking first question in general on the agriculture sector. Then they can ask specifically about farmer, where farmers' income or farmers' welfare would be a question. Then they can ask very specifically from consumer's perspective, what will be the impact on consumer. Then they can ask very specifically from price perspective. So perspectives can change and the same theme can be asked from multiple angles. So I hope you are able to understand how do you determine the theme, and you should be, that is how you should be practicing with PYQ. Same question of course will not be asked, but you should be try to reinterpret that question from other perspectives and try to answer that. At least develop a mental note on that, that okay, this can also be an additional way the question could be there. और अगर ऐसे पूछा गया तो मैं ऐसे आंसर करूंगा. If it is asked in this certain way, I will answer in that way. So that is how you should be doing little more practice with the PYQ. I hope this series is helping you here and will keep coming back with more. Thank you.